Good afternoon. Welcome to St. Paul's Wurtemberg and Ziegenfuss University. This is Reformation Sunday. That's October 31st, 1517. It was yesterday in church. Now it's Monday. And this is the stuff that I wish I could have done on Sunday morning church, because it's the pictures that go along with the historical information that I talk about. And let me do a couple of disclaimers here, first of all. What would Martin Luther want me to do today? He'd want me to talk about the Bible, right? And so on Reformation Day, it's a one time of the year where I obsess about Martin Luther. And why am I qualified to do this? When I went to Gettysburg Seminary, I had a very famous professor named Dr. Eric Grich. He wrote this many books on Luther. And he wrote so many books about Martin Luther that he looks like Martin Luther. He died a few years ago, but he was from Austria. He speaks fluent German. All kinds of interesting stories with Dr. Grich. He was in the Hitler Youth, and he was like 14 years old, and he was in charge of a group of boys that were like 10, 12 years old. And the Red Army's coming into Berlin, and Grich says, "I release you from your vow." And why is that? Germans do vows, and they're very literal. Germans are pretty tough. So half the boys got up and ran away, the other half stayed. The ones that stayed are all dead. And Grich himself, he has like black curly hair, and he speaks a little bit of Russian, a little bit of Polish. He speaks German. When the Nazis overran, they didn't kill him because he told them he was a gypsy. So they didn't kill him. And he goes on. He went to Yale. His doctor father is Dr. Roland Baton, who wrote "Here I Stand," 1950. You want to read that book? It's a good book. Next to Eric Metaxas' book, "Here I Stand" is a good Luther book. So Grich he wrote all kinds of books. He's a very interesting character. So anyway, whenever I could, I would take history classes with him to learn about Luther. I took as much Bible as I possibly could. So that's what I did at seminary. So all right, Martin Luther, all right, and the Protestant Reformation. Here we go. I'm going to move through these rapidly. We have a lot of slides here. All right, the Reformation. And what date do we use? 1517 to 1618. Stop. What's 1618 to 1648? The 30 Years' War. I was talking to somebody about this during the Joe and Bobby's coffee hour yesterday. The 30 Years' War is basically the First World War. And why is that important? 1/3 of the population of Germany were killed in the 30 Years' War. Try to think of World War II and World War I. World War II lasted 5 years, right? World War I is 4 years. It's a 30-year war, and it was devastating. And it took the German population and economy 200 years to recover from that. So Germany is just kind of on a comeback in the early 19th century. So the Reformation is 1517 to 1618, and what's the 30 Years' War? It's Protestants in the north against Roman Catholics, especially the Habsburg dynasty. We'll be talking about them later on. And the Renaissance and the Reformation are like two peas in a pod. They're allied, okay? So what's the cry of the Renaissance? Ad fontes. Say it. What's the Latin word? Ad fontes. Back to the fountainhead. Is that a good philosophy or a good motto in your life? Yeah. Don't believe me. Read the original sources yourself. Read the 95 Theses yourself. You're an intelligent person. Don't believe me. Like this one, okay? Is the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, sort of important? Don't believe me or some politician and their spin on it. Read it yourself, okay? So ad fontes, back to the original sources. That's a really good thing. So that Renaissance idea percolates into the Reformation thinkers, and it's reformation. Reformat the hard drive? That's what Reformation means. Reformat. Is Martin Luther out to start his own religion? The answer is no. He says, don't call yourself Lutheran, don't call yourself evangelical, which means preachers of the gospel, or Christian is even better. In the sermon, what did I say? I'm a Christian first, a Protestant second, and a Lutheran third. I'm not a person who goes around trying to convert people to Lutheranism, right? You don't convert to Lutheranism. You're a Christian or you're not a Christian. Lutheranism is just, it's a theological, historical school that we happen to follow, right? So, all right, Reformation. All right, reformation, reformat the hard drive. And who is this? This is Martin Luther. How can I explain how popular he was? He's a folk hero in Germany, northern Germany, folk hero, right? Well, hello there. Is Dave on the way too? What? He's worthless. He's no good. All right, I was talking to him on the phone. He said he might be coming. All right, so Luther's like a pop icon. So, you know, German peasants, whatever, northern, you might have a picture like this hanging up in your house. All right, what are his dates? 1483 to 1546. Okay, that's the window we're talking about. Martin Luther. Now, again, who does these paintings? Lucas Cranach the Elder, who lived a couple of doors down from him in Wittenberg, Germany. So this would be like having Norman Rockwell live down the street. Cranach is a very famous Renaissance artist. Renaissance, what does that mean? They're interested in the way people really look. So it's not stylized, airbrushed, cleaned up. This is the way Luther really looked. They believe in individualism. So it's a little bit of art history here. And he had a studio. He's very prolific. So he had like people working with him that he would release things under his name, like a designer or something. What's that? Oh yeah, we'll get to that. Yep. Okay, who is he? He's a peasant. He's not an aristocrat. Now, is that an interesting thing? In Europe, in 1500, it's hierarchical. So we only care about what the aristocrats think. The peasants, who cares? They don't have a voice in things. So he's not an aristocrat. He's an Augustinian hermit monk. Okay, I talked about this in the sermon, where you think about Roman Catholicism like an umbrella. The top of the umbrella is the Pope with the ribs that come down. Each one of those ribs is an order in the Catholic Church. Augustinians, Dominicans, Paulists, Marist Brothers, Maryknoll, right? Each one of them, and they have their own theology. It's sort of like Methodists and Baptists and Presbyterians well believe in Jesus, but they're a little bit different, but they're in the Catholic situation, they're all under the umbrella of the Pope, primacy of the Pope. So if you're going to read history, you need to know what order, is this person a Dominican? Is this person a Franciscan? Is this person a Jesuit? What's the current Pope? He's a Jesuit. Okay, does that have an impact on things? Yeah, that's sort of interesting. Okay, he's a Roman Catholic priest. In other words, he's not a Lutheran who started his own religion, is he? He's a Roman Catholic priest because he wants to reform it. He's a professor at the University of Wittenberg in Saxony. Where is Saxony? Northern Germany. Okay, Germany is not united until 1871. So there are 300 like little counties, duchies. It would be like Dutchess County is its own county with a prince or a duke or an archbishop in charge of the county. There's no state of New York, there's no united Germany. So that's very important. What are the solas, right? Remember, sola means alone in Latin. Sola fide, sola scriptura, sola gratia, grace alone, and solus Christus, Christ alone. Extremely important. All right, why do we want to remember Martin Luther? Okay, 1517 is the 500th anniversary, 2017. So now what is it, the 507th anniversary of the October 31st, 1517. So why do we care about this? Most people, they don't really do the history thing. You know, they live in the moment. It's important to know where we came from, where our ancestors, how the Christian religion developed over time. It gives you perspective. It helps you appreciate the here and now, which is 2024. Now, what's this? Someday we'll do a whole Ziegenfuss U on this if you have a morbid interest in it. This is church history leading up to the year 1500. Stop. Why is 1500 very important? This is 1500 right here, okay? This side of 1500 is the Middle Ages. This side of 1500 is the early modern European history time. You have to be able to make that distinction. If you went back into time and landed in 1400, you probably would have a very difficult time understanding what's going on. Completely different culture and so on. After 1500, you probably would be a little bit familiar with how people live and act. So 1500 is like a good anchor point, right? When was the 95 Theses again? What day? 1517. So he's just on this side of 1500. The key to understanding Luther is that he has 1 foot in the Middle Ages and 1 foot in the early modern European history. And he's one of the people that helped make early modern European history, early modern European history. He's really an important person. So you go back a little bit. I won't go through this. We'll do this whole thing sometime. We use 33 AD as an anchor date for death, burial, resurrection of Christ. Then we have the Great Schism. That's 1054, where the Eastern Orthodox Church, Greek, and the Latin Church split. So extremely important. Luther was very interested in Eastern Orthodoxy because here's the question: what does non-Latin Christianity look like? Is it possible to be a Christian and not be Roman Catholic Latin? So he was interested in how the development of the Eastern Orthodox Church. He didn't, as far as I know, he never met anybody, but he was interested in reading about Eastern Orthodoxy. You ever been to an Eastern Orthodox wedding or anything? It's pretty interesting. A lot of weird beards going on, incense going around, walking around. The wedding goes on forever. It's pretty interesting, and they have communion like behind a screen. It's very, very interesting. It's Christian, but you're like, what is this? It's like an alien, you know, very, very fascinating thing. So the Great Schism. So there was a separation prior to Martin Luther. So, all right, what is this? I'll do a whole class on this too. I was thinking about this. There are about 250 different Protestant denominations in America. Yeah, different, you know. So it's kind of interesting to compare. Like, okay, what do Presbyterians, what do Episcopalians, what are Methodists, Baptists, Seventh-day Adventists, right? What is all this? And my daughter Jenna is a member of the Disciples of Christ. I've been reading up on that the last year or so. That's an interesting denomination too. So we have all these different denominations. But all of the Protestant denominations go back to where? October 31st, 1517, Martin Luther and the 95 Theses. So he's kind of like all Protestants should know something about Martin Luther because he's the guy that kind of started the whole thing. He lit the fuse, okay? Middle Ages, okay? When you do European history, it's the early Middle Ages, then the late Middle Ages, and then 1500 is the modern world. That 1500 date's really important. What happened back here? 1492, Columbus discovers the New World. Is that a way that shattered the Middle Ages? Yeah. Okay. Or 1453, what happened then? Turks take Constantinople, so we can't go to the Silk Road. 1453, Gutenberg invents movable type. Patrick, did you see a Gutenberg press at the Bible Museum? Yes, you did. Why is that important? The printing press is the new technology that basically fueled the Protestant Reformation. Without the information revolution, not computers, the printing press, that's what blew it all up. So, and 1453, the 100 Years' War ended. How long was the 100 Years' War? What? My college students are stumped. They don't have no idea. Well, actually, it's 116 years. And what was it? France versus England. Why is that interesting? Who wins? The Navy or the Army?
The Navy.
The Navy wins. So it's the elephant, the land, against the whale. The whale wins. So the 100 Years' War ended. France had the continent locked up, and England had the sea. So the age of exploration sort of begins with where else is England going to go? Out to sea. Okay? So all those events happened leading up to 1500. So the early modern world begins with all that stuff pigpiling together just at the end of 1500. So 1500 is like the key. Right? Martin Luther again, okay, here's his dates. Notice he straddles 1500, doesn't he? Right? And 1492, Columbus's 4 voyages. I talked about this last week, right? Very important. He opened a whole new world. We thought that there was 3 continents, Africa, Asia, and Europe. With Columbus, we now know there are 7 continents. So he's the first of many. He opened up the whole world to us. Who is this? Johannes Gutenberg, the printing press. This is a huge thing. And a couple of interesting things about it. It's movable type. He was a goldsmith. So goldsmiths do like little tiny work. You make the letters in lead, and they're reversed, and you put them, you compose them on lines, and you press them. And what does that press look like? It looks like a wine press. That's what it is. It's a screw from a wine press. So you take the technology of the wine press, plus jewelry making, and you have movable type. And this was a revolution, a revolution. Western people, what do? We read books. That's a Western thing. Renaissance, I'm not going to go through all this, but some important people, Leonardo da Vinci, Machiavelli writes The Prince in 1513. So that's in Florence. That's kind of interesting. The Renaissance is popping just as Luther does the 1517. 1521, it's the Diet of Worms. We'll talk about that in a minute. That's the year that Magellan accomplished the circumnavigation of the globe. Is that a big deal? I like Columbus a lot. Magellan is the guy who really has got the guts. I think they left with 5 ships and they came back with 1. He didn't make it. He was killed in the Philippines. But I mean, just think about that for a minute. He goes around the world. Columbus, he's good. He made it to Puerto Rico and Dominican, right? That's good. But to go around the world, that's gutsy, right? And that happens at the same time that Luther is alive. So all kinds of things are happening here. What did people in the 16th century believe? Okay, so they believe the 7 sacraments of the Catholic Church, 7 sacraments. They also do the Crusades ended as a failure. We lost the Crusades. So what do? If you can't go to Jerusalem to visit the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, you go to your local church and you view relics that are there. Or you have the Stations of the Cross where you walk the Via Dolorosa. You can't go to Jerusalem, so you do it here in Rhinebeck. So pilgrimages are a huge thing. And what's the purpose of a pilgrimage? San Diego de Compostela? You get time out of purgatory. Rufus says, good news for you. Maybe a million years knocked off the tab there, So that's why we'd go on a pilgrimage. Risk your life to go and visit a holy shrine, and you get time off. Okay, and then indulgences come up, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Who is this again? Martin Luther, right? What kind of hat is he wearing there?
Oh, I forgot what they call it.
This means he's a doctor of theology. So when you walk down the street, you wear this. And why is he wearing like heavy robes? They don't have heat like we do. So they'd have a big building like this, and maybe one room might have like a fireplace to keep you warm. Mostly, we went to Germany in December to see the Christmas markets. I think I've never been so cold in my entire life. It's humid and cold, and it gets into your bones. You can't get warm. It's a very strange thing. We have heat everywhere, but so that's why you wear like a fur coat underneath, and they wear layers of clothing, and you wear the hat because it means you're a doctor.
What do you call it? There's a name for that hat.
Not a Beretta.
Yeah, Beretta. Oh.
A Busby. That's what we call it in the Oddfellows. Well, look it up anyway. It's a doctor's hat. It means a doctor of theology. All right. His father wanted to become a lawyer, right? Why do you want to become a lawyer? To make money. It's that way today too, right? You want to combine it with real estate or maybe tax law, Patrick. Combine the two, right? He decides to become a monk. I'll talk about that in a minute. He reads the Bible, which is a shocking thing, and he figures out that he had this moment of enlightenment, saved by grace through faith in Christ, not by works, and he was upset over the selling of indulgences. So timeline here: 95 theses are posted. A guy named Zwingli, who's a Swiss reformer, and what's interesting about Zwingli was first a follower of Luther, and then he broke with Luther. Zwingli's philosophy is this: if the Catholics do it, throw it out. Okay? So they don't like Christmas. They don't like, holy days, of course, are all out. They don't like stained glass windows. They don't like clergy wearing vestments. They don't like clergy. Where does all this end up? Most American Protestants you run into are Zwinglian. Okay? So when a Baptist or somebody meets me, they get very nervous because they think I'm Catholic. And they don't like Catholics. They don't wear clergy collars, they don't, So Zwinglians, most American Protestants are in the Zwinglian category, and they think that Lutherans are no good because we're like Catholic or Episcopalian or something, right? So Zwingli had a big influence on Protestantism in America. Pope Leo X, we'll talk about him in a little bit, don't go away. Luther's excommunicated. Luther begins church reforms in Saxony. The Peasants' Revolt, we'll talk about that a little bit, 1525. All right, so here we go. Again, this shows the life of Luther kind of laid out on a timeline. I don't know about you, but I kind of like to see the order of events to figure things out. 1525 was a big year. It's the Peasants' War, where 100,000 people were killed in fighting when the peasants thought they were doing a good thing to get rid of the Catholic Church. They killed monks, nuns, and the princes united, including Lutheran princes, to wipe out the scourge. He translates the Bible. He writes, "A mighty fortress is our God." We sung that hymn yesterday. Okay, let's go look at a map here. Wittenberg is maybe it's 110 miles south west of Berlin. It's in Saxony. And Leipzig is near there, Halle is near there, Dresden, we visited Dresden. And in the far south, Regensburg is interesting. A couple of popes ago, the pope was from Regensburg, Germany. So southern Germany tends to be hardcore Roman Catholic, northern Germany tends to be Lutheran, and western Germany tends to be Reformed. So Reformed and Lutheran people, right, are Protestant. So the Bavarians are Roman Catholic. Again, it's not, my college kids, they still think that Martin Luther King Jr. started the Lutheran Church. They have no, it makes me crazy, right? I can't look at the Mid-Hudson Bridge. I might jump off because of these people. Right? So you want to notice the date difference. Martin Luther King is a 20th century person. He didn't live in the 16th century. There's a difference, right? And again, Luther is the fat white guy that drinks a lot of beer. He's not the African American civil rights leader. Know the difference. If that's the one thing you learn today, it's worth coming here. Here he is, a little later in life. He porked up a lot. He gained a lot of weight. And why is that? Because his wife, Catherine von Bora, would cook fabulous meals that kept him alive. Right? Kind of an interesting woman. And I talked about this before. The 19th century, the highest IQs are Luther, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, who wrote Faust. You want to read him? He's a whole interesting guy. John Stuart Mill, who wrote On Liberty, and he also wrote a book on Principles of Economics that was 1848. He lived at the same time that Karl Marx lived in London, and of course they never met each other because Mill traveled in high elite circles, and Karl Marx was like disgruntled, sitting in his room, you know, writing angry things, and nobody could read his handwriting. So John Stuart Mill, a very interesting person. And this is Emanuel Swedenborg. I'll talk about him another time. His father was a Lutheran bishop in Sweden, and he was a mining engineer. And when he was 57, he's eating at lunch, and an angel came and started talking to him. So his whole life from that point on, he's interested in spiritual things. He wrote like a 12-volume set on the commentary on the book of Revelation, and a very strange dude. He invented a glider, an airplane. It's in the Smithsonian Institute. So he does he's a scientist who becomes like a mystic, a very strange individual. Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Mark, was Mill the same Mills as our Mills mansion?
No.
Oh.
No, John Stuart Mill.
Yeah.
He's a famous economist.
Well, who's this?
He married
guy?
Harriet Taylor. That's Ogden Mills. That's a different one.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
He was a Republican who, it's a long story. I don't know.
Yeah, no.
FDR didn't like him. All right, cast the characters here. Okay, let's go around the horn. Luther, okay. Charles V, the Holy Roman Emperor, he's the big deal here, and I'll show the map in a minute. Frederick the Wise, Elector of Saxony, that's why Luther wasn't killed. There's a political dimension to this, that in the old days, you would have just killed him. You would kill Luther, that's the end of the Reformation. Frederick the Wise kept him alive during power politics. Pope Leo X is the Pope at the time, and who is he? Giovanni de' Medici. He's from the de' Medici family. The Medici family. Big money, okay? So they basically installed him as the Pope. And Hans, that's his father, mother, we'll talk about, and Catherine von Bora, I'll talk about her too. All right, here it is. Here's the big date, October 31st, 1517. And here's the Reformation. So it's about 500 years. That's a good rule of thumb. Okay, why October 31st? It's All Saints Day, November 1st. It's the holy day of obligation. I talked about this yesterday. So you have to come to church, and when you go to church as you're a university student, you have to pass through the front door. It's the bulletin board for the community. Our bulletin board's at Williams Lumber. You ever look at the card? You know. So the people post things there, or we have Facebook. Well, in those days, it was the door of the church. And this is All Saints Day. All Saints Day is a huge thing in Eastern Europe and in South America, where you visit your deceased, and sometimes you bring a picnic lunch and you sleep overnight there and have candles lit. I mean, it's a big deal, right? Our poor cemetery, no one ever comes here, you know, and it's kind of a neat thing to kind of walk through the cemetery and, you know, kind of remember your ancestors and so on. He saw problems in the church, right? Posted the 95 Theses. This is a great line drawing of him as a monk. I remember he's a monk, Augustine Herman monk, and he was educated by the Brethren of the Common Life. That was it was a education group. They also educated Erasmus of Rotterdam. He went to Erfurt University, which is big money. It would be like going to Yale Law School or something. So his father spent a lot of money sending his promising son to law school, Erfurt University. And he's ordained in 1507 as a Catholic priest. He travels to Rome in 1510. And here's the life of Luther. If you back up, Gutenberg invents movable type. The Spanish Inquisition is started in 1479. And here's Luther's life in the Book of Common Prayer is 15. So it gives you some idea of the time here. Protestant, right? One who protests. The Diet of Speyer in 1529 was held. Charles V calls it, and he told the German princes in the north who are Lutheran, you must be Catholic, right? Because they're trying to fight the Ottoman Turks that are coming, you know, from the other direction, and we need troops. You must sign this agreement. And the Protestant princes, the German princes, got up and left the meeting. They protested. So people who protest against the Catholic Church are called Protestant. That's where that name comes from. And it's broader than just Lutherans. And what does the Catholic Church? They don't just sit around. It's a big bureaucracy, and they strike back with the Counter-Reformation. It took them a while to get going, just like the United States. We were bombed at Pearl Harbor. Did it take us a while to get things up and running? Yeah, but by the time, a couple years out, we had the whole United States economy geared up and to render justice. Well, that's what the Catholic Church did. It took them a while to get going, but once the bureaucrats get moving, everything is lined up, and boom, we end up with a 30 Years' War. Here's kind of the life of Luther. Again, he's a folk hero. This is you can get this print. You know, we should have this hung up in the back. It's kind of the life of Martin Luther. He's burning the papal bull. What does that mean? The Pope excommunicated him with a bull, a document, and Luther burned it, along with other books of, you know, canon law and this sort of thing. Of course, do college students like this?
Oh,
yeah, please burn it, as long as I don't have to read it. Yeah, I don't have time to read, I'm too busy, right? So yeah, they like book burning. It's a college thing. So, right, this is Hans Luther. Who did these paintings? Lucas Cranach the Elder. Is that what they look like? That's what they look like. And Luther's father was a hard dude. He was a peasant who made a lot of money in the copper mining industry, and we would say he's a multimillionaire. And Hans Luther wanted his son to be a lawyer to take over the family business. Instead, Luther gets interested in religion. Wrong. So the old man was a little annoyed. And we don't know a whole lot about his mother, other than she was a pious Christian woman. And here he is, the refining industry. Where's the money? In Germany, in Saxony. Who needs money? The Pope in Rome needs money. That's a problem. He's born in Eisleben. This is the Luther home. Almost everything in Germany is reconstructed because, you know, during the recent Second World War, the 8th Air Force made a mess out of it, right? So everything is rebuilt now. They numbered the blocks and put them all back together again. Germans clean up nice, and they rebuild things very nicely. Here, young Martin, okay, his father's a successful miner. He goes to the University of Erfurt, then he gets a bachelor's degree in philosophy, then an MA in law in 1505. So he's well educated, in other words. enters law school. Okay, 1505, this is the key thing. July the 2nd, he's out in the countryside walking around. Is that a good idea? Not really. He's out there walking around, and it's called Stotterheim. And there's a granite or monument here, and he's out walking around, and it's a hellacious thunderstorm. What causes thunder? You watch the Weather Channel. Well, it's like a front comes in, a static electricity discharge. In 1500, what causes lightning and thunder?
God.
The gods, the wrath of God, right? Wotan is trying to throw lightning bolts down and take you out or something. So he's out there in the countryside. There's lightning hitting the ground. He thinks he's going to die, right? A near-death experience. And he falls down on his face and he says, "Help me, St. Anne, I'll become a monk." Stop. Who's St. Anne? Come on, you Catholics here. You know this, don't you?
Mary's
Who is
mother.
it? Mary's?
Mother.
Yeah, the mother of Mary. Is that in the Bible? No. But according to tradition, St. Anne is the mother of Mary. Now, do we like Mary? Yes, we do. She's the mother of our Lord. Well, if you like Mary, then do you like Mary's mother? Mm-hmm. Yes, you do. Okay? So Mary is the mother of Mary. St. Anne is the mother of Mary. Now, St. Anne is the patron saint of guess what industry?
Miners.
The mining industry. You're right. Okay? So if you're in trouble, do you call on the patron saint of the leather workers? Of the barrel makers? Of the fishmongers? No, you call on the family saint. So he says, "Help me, St. Anne, I'll become a monk." Now, most of us, Patrick, I know you had a hard time in college when you're in college, right? You drink too much malt liquor and you're worshiping at the porcelain altar, throwing up, your intestines are coming out of your nose and everything. What do you say? You say this: "I'll never drink again." Right? You make a vow. The next day you're out drinking again. Because our word is worthless. Right? Because we're not German. What happens when a German says, "Help me, St. Anne, I'll become a monk"?
That's what they do.
You're right.
Yeah.
Germans aren't, when they take a vow, that's it. Okay, I probably should have said a vow to Hitler, but now that I did, I'm going to go out to the bitter end. So when they make a vow, they're not kidding. Okay? Same thing here. So he makes a vow, and he comes back to Erfurt. He goes, "You wouldn't believe it, I just about died." He tells all of his friends. And then what happens? 2 weeks later, they take him out to dinner as friends, one last big bash. Then he goes and reports to the monastery. And when his father found out, his father went in nuts. Imagine this. You spend money to send your kid to Harvard, Princeton, or Yale, and then they get a master's degree. That's even more money. There's no student loans. And then what happens? Never mind. I'm going to take a vow of poverty. And I'm not going to get married. I'm not going to have any children. That means no grandchildren for you, Hansi. Are you kidding me? I would be annoyed at this. Okay. So here's St. Anne. Okay, and it's in German. "Help me, St. Anne, to become a monk." And here he is, licking the dust. And of course, is this the stuff of like romantic mythology and wars and legends? Yeah, you kidding me? Germans love this stuff. So in the 19th century, it's like, and he became a monk. Help me, St. Anne. People love this stuff, right? It's like a Jesse James or something. So here's the monument. Okay, here it is. Here's St. Anne. Right? And here he is, going to the gate of the Augustinian hermit monastery in Erfurt. And who's St. Augustine anyway? He wrote The City of God. Read this book. Read this book. It talks about why the pagan Roman Empire fell. So about a third of the book, he's making fun of and reporting all the Roman polytheism, how it's deficient. You can't build a just and moral society on polytheism. And then the rest of it is about the Christian religion, why it's a good idea. This is one of the great books of the Western world. Oh, I don't care about God, I'm an atheist. That's fine. Read the book anyway, because it'll tell you how they went from the Roman Empire collapsing in 410 to 476 to the Middle Ages. It's the beginning of the Middle Ages. You want to know how people think of the Middle Ages? You read St. Augustine. St. Augustine founded, or They founded an order called the Augustinian Hermits in honor and in memory of St. Augustine. He's the patron of the Augustinian Hermit order. And there are many orders in the Catholic Church, right? The Augustinian Hermits are like the Marine Corps, the Navy SEALs. It's the most rigorous thing you can get. In other words, there were 17 monasteries in the greater Erfurt area. He could have taken an easy one, a cushy one. Dominicans or something. They drink a lot, could have a great time, Trappists or something. Now instead, he picks the most rigorous of all the monks. And what do? Well, you shave your head, you get tonsured, you wear like a habit, and you sleep on in a cell, like a jail cell, and you get up, you do the hours, you get up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, and you pray the 150 Psalms, takes about 2.5 weeks in Latin. In other words, you really work the program, okay? Now, was Luther a good monk? He says he excels at monkery, right? What does that mean? He's German, They work the program. Yeah, do they back off? Do they moderate things? Not so. He works the program, and he believes it. When they say you have to work the program, become a monk, remember he gave it all up to become a monk? And you say that you work the 7 sacraments, you do everything that they tell you to do, guess what? He still felt like he was alienated from God. He's trying to work his way to heaven. He excels in monkery. He's working. If anybody could have made it, it would have been him, right? He's like a perfectionist. He's working the program. He's killing himself, eating like, oatmeal with worms in it and, beating yourself. I mean, I'm talking about, no, it's like extreme stuff. He lost weight. He almost died, right? He had intestinal problems his entire life because of the way he lived as a monk for 7.5 years. He like tortured himself, right?
Why is he holding up
it's a flaming heart. This is like Renaissance art. It's the heart of Jesus. Yeah. Sacred Heart. And these are the Augustine Hermit is still around. So they wear black habits, right? And so there's still an order. Again, there's different orders in the Catholic Church, and they're all fascinating. Here's the gate. This is in Erfurt, Germany. We went there, right? And that's the gate that he went in. Yeah. And in this monastery, like the next lot over, I don't know if it's here, but it's right in there. There's a hole in the ground, and that was the library. And so 250 people from Erfurt went in the basement of the library because they thought it was safe. A direct hit from an 8th Air Force bomb blew the whole thing up and killed them all. So there's a plaque there. And it's in Old East Germany. So when we were there, 2010, something like that?
That was one trip. It was 2004, I think.
All right, 2004. There's still damage from World War II because the communists didn't clean up the mess. They just left it there. So there's still like piles of burnt stuff and buildings that are bombed out that are left there with weeds growing up. This is East Germany, right? So they blew up the library, right? And this has all been reconstructed, and you can stay here. So we actually stayed overnight here. It's pretty neat. Better accommodations you had in Washington. Okay? Pretty nice. They're Germans, Everything's clean, everything nice. The door locks. You open the door. It's like over-engineered. The windows go like this and like this and like this. Everything's over-engineered, right? That's what this is. It's really great. And they give you pretty good food. This is the cloister. So Luther would have like slept in the cell, and then you walk down here silently to the chapel. Right? That's the life of a monk. And what's in the inside of the courtyard? Bones. From who? Monks of previous generations. Because when you become a monk, your name is annihilated, and you just become part of the order, and you're buried together with all the brothers. So basically, you're dead, when you become a monk. He gets a doctor of theology in 1512. How did that one work out? He kept going to the Johann von Staupitz, the Augustinian vicar general, who was a great man, and he kept confessing his sins and confessing for like 6 hours at a time. And finally Staupitz goes, wait a minute, stop it, I can't take it anymore. You're in a monastery, what trouble can you get into? And he tried to name every single sin, right? The guy's German, right? They work the program. And so Staupitz said, okay, look, you are going to Wittenberg and you're going to get a doctor of theology. You're going to be a scholar of the Bible. Okay? Now, who reads the Bible? Monks don't read the Bible. When you are a novice, a novitiate, in your novitiate, you read the Bible. From that point on, you read the church fathers and theologians. So they don't read the Bible a lot. You'd think they'd read the Bible? No, they don't. So Luther read the Bible in his first year, and he fell in love with the Scripture. He's like, where's this been all my life? And so he becomes a doctor of theology, and his area of expertise is the Old Testament guy. And this is Johann Tetzel. He's a Dominican monk. And he gets a monopoly over sales of indulgences in the area of Saxony and Germany. So what does that mean? He gets a commission. A commissioned salesman. Is that a good thing? Probably not a good idea. Good for Tetzel, though. So Luther goes to Rome in 1510 for business on the Augustine and Herman order. Now, I don't know about you. Like, Patrick, you've been to Washington a bunch of times. Imagine if you've never been to Washington. You love the Constitution. You love America. You love history. And you go to Washington, and what do you see? Like prostitutes, drug dealers, corrupt politicians, the buildings in disrepair, the malls all ripped up, and you're crushed. Because you have this fantasy of Rome is, the holy city. And Rome is where the Pope is, and you hold the church in high regard because you're an Augustine and you're working the program. He walks there, he goes to Rome, and he's disgusted. Why? There are priests that are not faithful to their vows. They visit prostitutes. They say the Mass every day, and they speed through it. They don't take it seriously. The bureaucrats are running the place, so wherever there's money and power, then the least qualified people tend to show up, right? And they're the ones that rise through the ranks. You end up with degenerates have all the high offices. And Friedrich Wilhelm Hayek, I talked about this during the sermon, he writes The Road to Serfdom, 1944. Read the book. Chapter 10, Why the Worst Get on Top. Okay? He explains how you end up with someone like Hitler or Mao, or degenerates. They don't have any principles, so they'll lie and cheat and steal to get the power, which is what they're after. That's what's going on. Remember, in 1500, the largest institution in Western Europe is not the monarchy of Philip V. No, it's the Pope in Rome. They have their tentacles in everything. All Western Europe is controlled by the Catholic Church. And he goes there expecting holy city, and instead he ends up with this is awful. Yeah. He was like devastated, like deeply, deeply, deeply hurt, The woman you love turns out to be a whore. That's what happens, right? I went with onions and returned with garlic. That's his famous quote. And so here he is. He's German. Yeah, Germans like things to be clean and efficient, don't they? And what do you get to Rome, what do you see? It's like Italian Baroque gone mad. Billions of dollars wasted. You don't mind paying taxes if they don't squander and waste the money. When they waste the money in front of you, and if you complain about it, it's your problem. I mean, that's sick, right? Well, that's what's going on here. So there's poor people, there's places where the gospel's not been preached, there's all kinds of things that could and should have been. Instead, they're building a palace to themselves. He was offended to the core by this stuff. I kind of like Italian Renaissance art. But for a German, it's offensive, He's in Rome, right? Speedy masses, mockery. It's a mockery of Christianity. If there was a hell, Rome was built on it. That's pretty powerful stuff, isn't it? Afterwards, Luther moved. Okay. And here he is. They made a great movie about the young Martin Luther, and here he is in Rome. And these are all pilgrims that come from all over Europe to go up the steps. Allegedly, these are Pilate steps, that they relocated. It's a legend. So he's going up the steps on his knees to do penance. And he's like, they're taking money from all these people. Poor, simple people that believe in Jesus. They're taking advantage of these people. And they're living large. All right, he's pilgrims in Rome. Yeah, Luther was overwhelmed by the extravagance. Luther's things nice and plain. You go down there, and it's offensive. Okay, so here he is. All right, this is the town of Wittenberg. Wittenberg is about 2,000 people. It's a small little town, and it has mud streets. And he was sent there by Johann von Staupitz to get his doctor of theology degree and be a professor at the new University of Wittenberg University. And who is the patron of that? Frederick the Wise, Elector of Saxony. He was a very religious man. He loved Jesus, and he had a large collection of holy relics, and he was, doing the right thing. And he started this university, and his prize pupil, his prize professor is Luther. Sort of like, do we like Aaron Judge? He's like the prize of the Yankees. Well, that's Luther. He's like the prize professor. He's like 30 years old, up-and-coming guy. Everyone loved him, so he makes him. So Wittenberg University. Here, these are pictures of what it looks like today. Again, it's all been reconstructed. They were hit pretty hard in World War II. And there's the Luther statue here in the center of town. That's the Rathaus, that's the town hall. It always has a nice town hall. And Lucaria, this means White Mountain in Greek. So Wittenberg is White Mountain. So this is what they called the University of Wittenberg. Lucaria means White Mountain. And this is the Church of the Two Towers. I think this is St. Mary's. Yeah, the churches in Germany are great to look at. Medieval Roman Catholic Church. Again, why is it important to know it's medieval? Because it's not the Catholic Church now. So you have to make a proper distinction here. It's 500 years ago. This is Alexander the Sixth. Who is he? Rodrigo Borgia is the Pope. Who is it the Pope at this time? It's like the bastion of corruption. He was married. He had like 2 mistresses on the side. He had like 7 children running around the Vatican. Cesare Borgia is his son, who's sort of like Napoleon. He's going around getting in wars all over Italy. Lucretia Borgia is his daughter, and there's like rumors of like incest and all kinds of nasty stuff. I mean, it's not the Pope these aren't religious people, right? These are princes that like money and power, and they use the papacy because it's the biggest institution in the world. So that works? Do we believe in separated church and state? Yeah, that's why. Okay? You don't want your politicians being involved in politics. Right? Not a good thing. Henry the Navigator. Okay, so we talk a little bit about this. This is the Iberian Peninsula. Why is this interesting? In 711 AD, the armies of Islam crossed over right here, the Iberian Peninsula, and they invaded, and they made it all the way up to here, central France, the Battle of Tours at 732. So they conquered this whole thing. Spanish and Portuguese Catholics, Christians, fought the Islamic Moors for 785 years to kick them out of Spain. That's why, again, Spanish people are really, really Catholic. Really, really Catholic. Really Catholic. So in 1492, they kicked the Moors out of Spain January 1st. And what did they do next? They kicked the Jews out of Spain because they're not Catholic. And what did they do in 1492 in October? They bankrolled Columbus. So it all fits in together. Ferdinand and Isabella got married. They united their armies. Castile is Isabel. That's the biggest, most richest of the countries. Aragon is where Ferdinand was from. That was smaller. Isabella wore the pants in the family, and they were in love. They were a nice couple and all that kind of. They were Catholic, very, very, But she was the more powerful. And the Grenada is the last place where the Moors were, and they were driven out in 1492. So that's going on as Luther, 1500 in Luther. Okay, so this stuff is going on here. Henry the Navigator, he starts exploring for the Portuguese up and down the coast of Africa, right? Canary Islands. And Pope Alexander VI, right, Rodrigo Borgia, he divides the world into 2 parts. And it's called the Treaty of Tordesillas. And the line is right here, north-south. Okay, north-south this way. What did I do? Oh, great. Sorry. I always hit the wrong button here. Oh, there it is. Okay, good. All right, I'm back. Don't breathe. All right. So this north-south line, from here to there, this north-south line, that territory got given to Portugal. The rest of it got given to Spain. Who got the best deal there? Well, at the time, they thought it was the Portuguese that got the best deal. And what language do they speak in Brazil?
Portuguese.
Why is that? Because it's on this side of so that's Portuguese right here. The rest of it is Spanish. This is before they discovered gold and silver in South America and Central America. So they thought that, so the Portuguese had access to around Africa, Goya, which is southern India. So the Portuguese thought they got the best deal. Notice, are the Germans or German people in the discussion here? Not really, because Germany is 300 little states. Who cares about them? The big power players at the time are Spain and Portugal. And here we go. And that shows the Portuguese area. I think this is fascinating stuff. And the big money is in the Caribbean because they have what? Sugar cane. And Europeans love sugar. And in order to get sugar, you have to have slavery. They brought slaves in from Africa. So the whole sugar trade, the Caribbean is the place to be, not New England. Nobody cared about the New England. And these are just shows the trading. Vasco da Gama, again, another great hero who made it around Africa, Cape of Good Hope. I mean, look at that. Columbus is okay, but this is amazing. All right, Vasco da Gama's. All right, okay, this is Cesare Borgia, the son of the Pope, who's basically like Napoleon. He's going around leading armies, getting all kinds of problems, you know. He was made a cardinal also, right? And this is what Italy looked like. Italy is united in 1871 too. So it's all these warring city-states. And the center of it are the papal states. So the Pope, the Bishop of Rome, is like the king of the papal states. Some popes actually led troops into battle, fighting against, you know, like the people from Florence or something. And here's Leo X. Again, he's a Medici, right? And he was made a cardinal at age 13. And he was elected pope. Little money changed hands here. And he was ordained a priest after he was elected pope. Yeah, and he says, they have given us the papacy, let us enjoy it. So he was like a party animal. He liked to party a lot. He liked the Renaissance art, architecture, you know, he liked to party.
It's just die 8 years later, or would be?
Oh yeah, he did. They don't live too long back then. Remember, average life expectancy is like 35.
Gotcha.
So they don't have like 80-year-old people running around.
Okay.
And there are rumors that, you know, I don't believe rumors like this. He was poisoned. You know, because they would they poison each other. It's like ruthless. It's like watching The Sopranos. You know, where they're like people always, you know, they rub out the competition, and that's what they do, right? Okay, so the center prior to 1453, when the Turks took Constantinople, the money center is Florence, Italy. Medici family, big money. Okay, the three gold balls, the pawn shop. What happens after that? The money center moved to Augsburg, which is in Germany. Why? Well, because of the trade routes and the money lending and so on. And the big guy is this guy. This is Jacob Fugger, right? Now, we don't really know who he is right now, but we should. He's probably the richest man who's ever lived. It's like Elon Musk and Trump and all their money together. He'd still have more money than them. And he made money through money lending and trade and copper mines and so on. He was also Roman Catholic, and he gave a lot of money to help the Catholic Church, and he lent money to the Holy Roman Emperor. In other words, it would be like, the guy is so rich, he's bankrolling the Holy Roman Empire. That's rich. And here he is, Jacob Fugger. Here's Pope Leo, and he's a Medici. Then they're rebuilding St. Peter's, and they need money. So what do? Well, where do you get troops from? And during the Crusades, which we lost, you tell people, we need soldiers, and guess what? If you're killed in combat, you get an indulgence, all your sins are forgiven. Kind of like in Islam, where same kind of thing. So what happened after the Crusades ended? We lost 2 Crusades, remember? Islam won. Then people said, how can I get in on this indulgence action without having to go on a crusade? Well, if you make a donation, we can help you out there. Okay? So here they are, raising troops, giving out indulgences, 7 sacraments. It's always good to know these. That's home base for you. In the Lutheran Church, there are 2, baptism, Lord's Supper. Principle, you can't undo a sacrament. I talked about this in the sermon. So once you're married, once you're ordained a priest, once you're, whatever, baptized, you can't undo a sacrament. Think of The Sopranos again. I put the picture up here so you know this. All right, what's the problem with The Sopranos? They're all Catholic. They're all bad dudes who commit murder and mayhem, right? Well, are they going to heaven? Well, if they're baptized, they're going to heaven, but what do you do about that? Purgatory. So I talked about this in the sermon yesterday. Remember? Hell is downstairs, where Joe and Bobby's coffee hour was. Heaven is up in the balcony. The purgatory is in the middle, okay? And it's a place where you go to have your venial sins purged. Mortal sin would be, I reject God, I don't believe in Jesus, right? That's the unforgivable sin, rejecting the Holy Spirit. Venial sin would be like, again, you steal a donut at Stewart's, right? It's a sin, and you can't go to heaven because that's on your record, your permanent record from junior high. I saw your permanent record, not good. Not good, not good, right? So you have to go to purgatory for a couple million years to have your sins purged out so you're holy enough to go to heaven, okay? And where did that come from? It comes from speculation of theologians in the Middle Ages. It's not in the Bible. There's no purgatory in the Bible. And who is this? This is Pope Sixtus, right? And he, 41 years before 1517 Luther, has this great idea. I know, you can buy indulgences for your dead relatives to get them out of purgatory. You got to admit, it's a good marketing thing, right? So it was a problem for 41 years before Luther came along and said, no, okay? And he's also the one, this Pope Sixtus also invented the idea of the Spanish Inquisition. No one expects the Spanish Inquisition. And what's the Spanish Inquisition? You're in Spain, and there are Jews there. But they claim to be Catholic, but they're probably secret Jews. How do you find out if someone is really Catholic? Well, you torture them until they admit that they're Jews, right? So the Spanish Inquisition is this genius here. So the same guy that came up with that came up with the idea of indulgence for your dead relatives. And here's an indulgence, right? And I must admit, it looks better than my college diplomas do. It's pretty impressive here, isn't it? Looks like something you might get from the grotto or the Masons or something. I don't know.
Can't you buy them
Pretty impressive,
online?
right? What is it?
Can't you buy them online?
I bet you can. Yeah, I'm covered.
Just send so
And
much
they would
money.
come to town, a big marketing thing. They'd have like a pageant, singing, drums, and the peasants would come up. And if you buy one, you're in luck. You Dominican order coming around.
Unbelievable.
They did good marketing. They knew how to sell things. Here's Pope Leo. And what are the causes of the Reformation? Indulgences, huge problem. Nepotism, right? Mm-hmm. So your nephew who's 13 is a cardinal. That's Leo the 10th. Simon, you sell your offices, okay? So you can say, I'll forgive your sins for a contribution, right? Oh, look the other way. Pluralism. They would have 2 or 3 or 4 offices. So you'd be like the Archbishop of Newburgh, and you've never been to Newburgh before, but you get paid. So it's got a no-show job, right? That's how you'd say it in the mafia or something, unions or no-show jobs. Absenteeism, clergy outside the parish. I'm the pastor of the church in Albany, but I've never been to Albany, but I get paid. That's a problem. And Pope Alexander, this guy was a rotten. He was like really awful. The Borgias. Frederick the Wise had an interesting collection of relics, and 5,000 relics he had, and people would come and visit the relics. Again, what is it about relics? If you can't go to Jerusalem to see the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, then you go to the Castle Church here in Wittenberg and you can view the holy relics. It's like doing a pilgrimage. It makes sense, actually, right? 95 Theses, here we go. This is what they look like, the original printing. And again, printers translated into German and they printed it, went viral. Johann Tetzel selling indulgences. Here he is. He's a Dominican, very effective salesperson. And what's his slogan? As soon as a coin in the coffer rings, another soul from Purgatory springs. So they even had a slogan to go with it. Great marketing, I must admit. You know, I've taught marketing before. Yeah, this is a pretty good slogan, right? It kind of gets in the worm gets in your head, you know. You deserve a break today. I can't get it out of my head, right? Adults are being abused. Gee, bureaucrats abusing their privileges. We've never heard that one before, right? Here's Johannes Tetzel. There he is, and he's always shown fat, you know, because peasants are starving and they're skinny, but the Dominican monks are always shown like fat, you know, because they're feeding on you and they're bloated and, you know. That's a slogan again. Here's again. And here he is selling indulgences. Now, Luther posted it again. Why did he do it? It's a holy day of obligation. And this is like German romantic legend stuff of the 19th century. So did it really go this way? Just go with the story, right? And of course, you know, the pictures of him, you know, nailing it up there. He didn't use like that kind of like glue sticks. No, he nailed it up there. And of course, here, this shows all of his students gathered around, everybody's a big celebration and everybody's happy. No, he probably did it when nobody was around, you know? Like putting up a yard sign, a campaign or something. And what did he want? He wanted a disputation. What's a disputation again? The Dominicans against the Augustinians, and the Leipzig disputation was 23 days. So the students come to sit around the 23 days of like, you know, questioning and so on. And here's the castle church in Wittenberg. It's a picture that we took when we were over there. That survived. And this is Mrs. Isaacs. Gee, we look good there.
Oh,
what happened to us?
Oh my gosh.
And you see, this is the 95 Theses are on the door. And the question is, what happened to the original door? Well, it like burned up in a fire like 150 years ago. So what do the Germans do? They do it in bronze.
Yeah.
That way, it won't burn down again. And they put the Theses on the door too, just in case someone wants to take it off. So this is like the big tourist thing. You have to get your picture taken there. And here it is, here it is, here it is. This might actually be a good place to stop.
Okay.
And then I'll pick it up next week with leftovers. Are there any questions or anything?
No, but I did look up the hat.
Yes.
To wear as for your doctorate. It's called a tam.
A tam. I should have known that.
I forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have one. I just have like a Yankees hat.
You should have 4 of them.
No, it isn't.